The following program is a special presentation of the Big Ten Network, produced in association with the University of Illinois.
On a hot August night in 1951, a crowd packed into the St. Louis Public Schools Stadium to watch the kings of basketball, Abe Saperstein's Harlem Globetrotters.
I went to see the Globetrotters play when I was 8 years old. I was shocked at how good these guys were, the things they were doing. But I had spent less time looking at the players than I looked at people in the audience and how they were just like amazed at what the guys were doing and how much respect they had for them.
As he watched Goose Tatum and Marcus Haynes perform, young Mannie Jackson's eyes grew wider. Never before had he seen black men like this, so strong, so cool, so respected by everyone, black and white.
So I worked my way down to the floor, and Abe Saperstein, who's a little guy about this tall, walked right to me. And I looked at him and I said, Mr. Saperstein, I want to play with you guys, and I want to play with you guys. And he put his hand on my head. He said, you get an education, and you come back and see me when it's over.
That night, Mannie Jackson had a vision of the future. He saw that even a boy like himself, one born in a railroad boxcar and living in Jim Crow America, could achieve power and help thousands around the world. Where the Mississippi River divides Illinois and Missouri, there was a town called Ilmo. People there made a living from the river and the Cotton Belt Railroad.
Oh, Susie, Susie, don't you know I can make your belly grow?
The African American railway workers, or Gandy dancers, worked 12 to 14 hours a day straightening the tracks that got twisted by the New Madrid fault line. Their straw boss was Alonzo White, Mannie Jackson's grandfather.
And part of his compensation was he was given a boxcar that the family lived in that they took off the railroad and set on the side of near the work site. I was born and raised in a railroad boxcar.
In May of 1939, Alonzo's daughter, Margaret, had a baby boy named Mannie. Her husband, Emmett Jackson, was a Navy man who turned heads because people couldn't tell if he was black, white, or Latino. While her husband was away in the war, Margaret and her children, Mannie and Marjorie, lived with her parents.
Well, the community that we lived in, say, were 12, 15 families, and that was kind of the close-knit community because all the men worked on the railroad tracks. As I look around this boxcar, I'm just struck by how 11, 12, and sometimes 13 people could live so closely together and be such a family. And I don't remember a lot of complaining. My grandmother kept an impeccable place. My father played baseball and coached the baseball team. And he also was a piano player and a musician. It seemed like we were always doing something. When I actually stand in this boxcar, I look back and I say, pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
It was her home. When I look back, remember, it was nothing to be ashamed of. It was very, very neat. And I remember the yard thinking, how nice. It was her own little home, her own little piece of heaven, I guess.
To Marjorie Jackson, Ilmo may have seemed like heaven. But reality was that the family struggled against the river. Every spring brought the Mississippi to their front door.
My grandfather from Edwardsville came down one time and said, I can't look at this anymore. And loaded us all up in a truck and took us to this town of Edwardsville. I never saw homes like this that I could walk into. I never saw neighborhoods and paved streets, school building that looked like nothing I'd ever seen before.
Both sides of Mannie's family moved into Sylvester Jackson's large home in Edwardsville, Illinois. Mannie looked out the window across Route 66 at the beautiful high school across the street. But he noticed that all the students who went there looked alike. They were all white. Mannie and Marjorie Jackson walked 2 miles to the only school for children like them, the all-black Lincoln School. Students attended from 1st through 12th grade.
This is the big basketball court. This is where all the action happens. And all summer we play out here. And people would stand over there along here and watch us play. And so we had these challenging games going on back here. So we'd play until way in the dark on summer nights. And it would be just like serious stuff. I look at it now and say, how can you get so much energy packed into one little place that looks like this? This little court here was the start of a lot of great things for us.
As long as you make a basket, you keep the ball. As soon as you miss, the other team took over. We had our own rules and our own way we did things, and that's the way it was.
Basketball was king in Edwardsville. If you check history, it was king. But I played with them, but I was always a little guy, but I always managed to play.
Pride came from being great on the basketball court, being macho and tough and strong, be able to run faster than anybody else and kick the crap out of any kid that bothered you.
As Mannie grew, basketball became an even greater focus. It was a rock to hold on to as the world changed around him. During the 1950s, the walls of segregation were collapsing. Courts across the country struck down separate but equal laws for public institutions.
Separate but equal, that was a farce. As I've gotten older and reflected on this, I hated what this school made me become. Flip over and I love what it made me become. It's that contrast of the greatness that came out of here and the toughness it gave me and just the feeling of I gotta get someplace. But I hated the fact that I had the extra hurdle to overcome.
In 1951, the Edwardsville schools integrated. Lincoln School was closed. The students were sent to different schools and their cherished teachers were let go. Whatever insecurities Mannie felt at his new school, he hid them on the basketball court. Basketball helped the black and white students come together. Mannie and his best friend, Governor Vaughn, helped the Columbus Junior High Wildcats to an undefeated season. But basketball couldn't fix everything.
He was given the option of either giving up his work with the NAACP or giving up his job, and I believe Dad gave up his job.
Emmett Jackson paid a price for his outspoken support of desegregation. He lost his job and his home and went to Chicago to work in the post office. Margaret and the kids stayed behind. They moved to public housing in a town near Edwardsville called Madison.
This is Newport, Illinois, a small part of the city of Madison. This became one of the most significant homes I lived in. It's disappointing. My dad would be shocked if he knew it looked like this. A lot of memories, and I bet if I walked these streets more, I could name more people and have more memories.
That's my son, my grandson, and that's my granddaughter.
So these families took care of the Jackson family. This means a lot to me, this area. And we knew the schools in Edwardsville were better. We knew we had a chance to reach different levels. We actually commuted out of here for a year and a half. My mother drove from just 2 blocks from here out of the projects to Edwardsville to take us to school. She worked domestically there. And you see that people are still working to keep this community together. Donnie Boy and I were classmates.
That's my uncle.
Most of my family had started out here. It's probably one of the poorest and most difficult cities in the country.
All right.
Keep doing what you're doing.
You take care of yourself and keep letting people know about our city. We got a good city.
We
Thank you.
We got a great family.
Mannie's growing fame as a basketball talent made the daily commute back to Edwardsville a little easier. Many people reached out to help Margaret with gas money and car repairs. Mannie and Gov got jobs at Richard's Brick to help out with the family expenses, and it also helped them on the court.
One of the best memories of my life, this Richard's Brickyard. It's actually the place where I worked in the summers and a place where I learned how to work. People wondered how we got so strong and our legs got so strong, how we could jump so high. This is the secret. Every summer we worked this brickyard and we stacked together 7 to 8 bricks and put them in thongs. That's 80 to 90 pounds. We took the raw brick from here and we put them on brick racks here. And we started at the bottom so the leg work build up, and we eventually swung them to the top so the upper body got strong. You did this for 7 to 8 hours. I often say that the basketball courts, I learned how to play basketball. This is a place where I not only learned the value of work, but I learned how to work and how to make things happen. And this was an unbelievable, happy place in my memories.
Mannie's strength from hard physical labor at the brickyard translated into a 44-inch vertical leap. He sailed over other players and averaged 30 points a game. In his junior and senior year of high school, he was selected to the Illinois All-State team. His success was guided by legendary coach Joe Luco. Luco was a tough, smart Italian-American who was known for his impeccable suits and winning seasons. He cared deeply for his star player and demanded the best. During Mannie's high school years, Luco took his team to 4 regional titles, 2 sectional titles, and twice to the state tournament. Even today, Mannie gets together with his old teammates to tell stories about their former coach. One of the most repeated stories is the night Mannie missed the bus to an away game.
But he's told this story about leaving Man, and he said, everyone thought I was being such a tough guy.
I was on the bus. I was sitting there, wait.
And that thing took off. I was never so scared and felt so lost in all my life.
Mannie took a cab to the game. Coach Luco offered to pay the fare if Mannie scored 20 points. Mannie scored 24.
They were talking earlier before you got here about the integration, and I thought the school went great. We did fine, but the city, it took them a long time to come around.
Inside Edwardsville High School, the students accepted their new classmates. But outside the classroom, segregation was still part of their daily life. Luco was challenged by the fact he was coaching a team from a small school in southern Illinois that had only recently integrated. Mannie was berated by rival fans with racial slurs during games. Luco instructed his black players to keep their emotions in check and prove themselves with their talent. Despite his efforts to keep them unified, racial divisions constantly threatened to tear them apart. Townspeople pressured Luco to make sure the black players used different towels than the white players. Even though Mannie and Gov were crucial to the team's success, they could not join their teammates in celebration after a game. They had to stay in the kitchen while the rest of the team enjoyed a victory together.
I love Edwardsville and I love this community with the rest of the team. But I've never in my life been able to reconcile, and at this age I'm going to tell you this, how we could play basketball at the level we played and become famous at it, and we were very good, and walk across the street to Idlewood or in Moosel's restaurant and not be allowed to sit in the restaurant with the rest of the team. Not one player walked up to that little portal. We're back in the kitchen being fed through a little portal, watching our teammates do this, came back and said, I'm not gonna eat too, or I'll stay back here with you. That's a scar. If they ever skin me back and say, what's going on in this body, somewhere that scar of misunderstanding and disappointment and concern is still there.
Mannie's senior year, the Edwardsville Tigers headed to the Illinois State High School basketball tournament in Champaign. The entire town, black and white, came together to cheer on the team. At the championship game, Mannie looked out on an audience that included everyone he knew. But there were 2 new faces in the crowd, University of Illinois men's basketball coach Harry Combs and assistant coach Howie Braun. Edwardsville fought hard against Rockford West, and Mannie led the Tigers in scoring. But the team fell short by 2 points. Mannie finished his high school career as Illinois Player of the Year. Colleges across the country were calling with incredible offers, but Coach Combs convinced Mannie and Gov to come to the University of Illinois.
I fell in love with the campus when I was a junior in high school. And once you have that impression of something so palatial, so laid out, so well groomed, it never gets out of your mind. But additionally, we had a classmate, Don Old, that had gone a year earlier. First time that 3 players from the same high school started at the University of Illinois. And I thought we had a chance to be a real big-time championship team. My first thought was, damn, we picked too big a place. But over a few weeks, we got accustomed to it, and we got in the groove of things, and we said, we picked the right place. I have to tell you, the dormitory was a big step up from where I came at home. Bathrooms inside, beds that were soft, single bed you could sleep by yourself.
Oh my goodness, this is for me? I get this just because I can play basketball?
Being among thousands of young people at the University of Illinois was a big change from small Edwardsville High School. But one thing was the same. Mannie and Gov were different than most of the other students.
In the season, we were basketball stars. When the season was over, students and black guys. And the student part wasn't that bad, but being an African American on this campus that was 99% white, you really felt isolated. You had nowhere to go. You couldn't get a haircut here. You couldn't go in some of the restaurants. There were places you just were off limits. You just didn't go into, being an athlete or not.
We have to look back at a time and place when we hadn't come very far.
Community, it was not necessarily a liberated place, and they had to deal with it, but they did it quietly and with dignity, and that has been the hallmark, I think, of the two of them from the time that I've known them.
Despite their feelings of isolation, Mannie and Gov kept their focus on playing and winning. They wanted to prove themselves to Coach Combs, but he had something else in mind.
I think what he saw in Mannie and me is that we're going to put all this to bed about no blacks ever made this team or led it on this basketball team.
I don't know whether they were intentionally trying to break the color barrier per se, but I think they were trying to get the best basketball players.
When Mannie and Gov came here, we of course had not had any varsity black basketball players.
I didn't really understand the significance of it until I graduated and really understood what Mannie meant to this program and for African Americans that follow him to the University of Illinois.
In December of 1958, Illinois faced the #1 Kentucky Wildcats. Hostile Kentucky fans jeered Mannie and Gov. They ignored the crowd and focused on keeping pace with the Wildcats. Mannie scored 19 points but fouled out just 2 minutes into the second half. As he walked off the court, the Kentucky band played Bye Bye Blackbird. In the final seconds, Illinois was down by 1 point. Gov took a shot at the buzzer.
It didn't go in. I had a couple guys that says, as I made that shot, we were going to cut your ears off and send them back to your folks up north.
They let it just roll down their back, and as much as they were hurting inside.
As an 18-year-old, that's amazing to go into hostile territory like that with adults yelling at you.
Eventually, you have to live in a society that's pretty diverse, pretty divided, and we learned to cope with the racism.
He had the great insight to say that he always noticed racism, but he never let it keep him from doing what he needed to do.
Mannie and Gov were happy to get home to Huff Gym.
I've played every place you can think of. I've been in 105 countries. I've played in all kinds of gymnasiums and places. No place in the world that was equal to a championship game or a weekend game in Huff Gym. The cheerleaders were loud. The fans they knew us. They knew everything about us. You'd walk on the floor, if you cut your hair differently, they'd say, something's changed.
People sat with their feet on the floor. You had to ask them to move to take the ball out of bounds. There were no aisles in the downstairs. It was the ideal home court.
During the winter, we'd open up all the windows upstairs, so when the visiting team got on the floor, they were freezing. We were ready for it. We're looking for any little edge we could have.
If you're sitting in the first row of the bleachers there on the floor, you could reach out and trip someone, you could reach out and touch. The football players were right there pulling for the team. I just loved the closeness and the intimacy.
I can still see Mannie taking the ball, driving to the right corner, dead corner, and getting up in his patented jump shot.
Very fluid as a player. He had great hops. We played a wide open game. My sophomore year when I was playing with Mannie and Gov, we were 7-0 after our first 7 games, averaging over 100 points a game.
Going into their senior year, Gov was voted MVP and Mannie was elected team captain. Mannie Jackson was the first African American to lead the Illinois team.
Being elected team captain was something I was very proud of. It was a great confirmation or validation from my teammates, and I was excited about it.
One of Mannie's biggest challenges as team captain happened off the court. Every year, the Illinois State High School Basketball Championships were held at the University of Illinois, and one high school girl was selected to be tournament queen. One of the queen's honors was to be escorted to the dance by the captain of the Illinois basketball team. In 1959, the tournament queen was Jean Even of Aurora West High School.
I was a cheerleader, and I know people liked me. And my mother was drilling me on what questions to ask, and she was going to ask me this or that, you know, so it was fun.
And the assistant coaches came in, and their concern was, what would it look like to the high school Sweet 16 queen if she had to spend the night or walk down the aisle with a black person?
One thing that I do remember them saying is that when he crowns me, he's going to have to kiss me because the captain of the basketball kisses the queen.
Because of this, university officials wanted Mannie to step down as team captain. They told him she would be scarred for life.
And I had a big conversation with myself about that, and I said I'm not going to refuse it. I accept the honor graciously. I'm proud to be the captain of the University of Illinois basketball team, and I'll take whatever responsibility comes with it. So I left the decision up to her. And she and her mother said, I want you to escort my daughter down the hallway when they have that honor.
That's hard to let it sink in, to be honest with you. To impact somebody so strongly, you know, that's really, it touches me very deeply. I'm very respectful of him, that he has not given in to the pressure. But I want to thank him for that.
When Mannie and Gov graduated in 1960, they had permanently changed the face of Illinois basketball.
The fact we were making history never crossed our mind. It was too hard a work. The work was hard, and we knew people were focused on us, and we had to survive, and we had to be good at what we did. Through basketball and this university, a lot of doors opened that would have been completely closed. Education was a ticket to get to the next level. And I got a great education here. No matter where I went in the United States or around the world, I'd stay with the University of Illinois, and right away people perked up.
Mannie left Illinois for New York City to work for the Technical Tape Corporation. He worked in the corporate offices and played for the company's basketball team, which was part of the Industrial League. For Mannie, tuck tape was a dream job as he got to combine his love of basketball and desire to succeed in the business world. He loved the excitement of New York. At Taper's games in Madison Square Garden, he showed off his skills against NBA teams on a weekly television broadcast.
I'll say this, and I'll say it bluntly, that I thought he was good enough to go right to the NBA coming out of Illinois. At that time, there weren't many African Americans playing in the NBA.
The time my dad was growing up, there wasn't really, the NBA wasn't welcoming to people like him, people like us.
During college and after, Mannie kept in touch with Globetrotters owner Abe Saperstein, who was also an Illinois alum. Abe invited Mannie to try out for the Globetrotters, But Mannie was reluctant to leave the business world of tuck tape. So Abe tried another approach. He offered to teach him the business side of the Globetrotters.
At the time, that was the only outlet he had for professional basketball, and along with a lot of other black players who are really talented.
Mannie started his season with the Globetrotters on a 30-country world tour. When the plane touched down in Europe, it was the first time he touched foreign soil. It was also the first time he experienced a world that wasn't divided along strict color lines.
There's not a better life. Everybody loves the Globetrotters and a Globetrotter.
Since he was only 21, Mannie was dubbed Young Squirrel by his older teammates. To the sellout crowds of 20,000 fans, the Globetrotters were not black guys. They were American entertainers. But the team's schedule was tough both physically and mentally. Often they played a game during the afternoon and another that night. As he spent long nights on the bus traveling between cities, Mannie thought about his future.
I knew that I was capable of being addicted to that grand life of being a Harlem Globetrotter. The longer I stayed with it, the more I was infatuated by it, addicted to it, and I loved everything about it.
One thing he had was basketball talent, but another thing he had was just intelligence and sort of a logic about him that probably helped him realize fairly early on that, you can't be a professional athlete for your entire life. You need to think of a plan beyond that.
The people I felt accountable to wanted to see me do more in life than be on the basketball road for a lifetime.
Abe shared with Mannie how he built one of the most famous brands in the world with the best players in the world. The team was drawing crowds of over 4 million people a year with Abe's visionary ideas of blending sports and entertainment. Abe saw Mannie as more than a player, and after 2 years with the team, Mannie thought it was time to prove him right. But moving into the business world was not as easy as he had hoped.
When I'd go to interview, they'd spend the whole time talking about basketball and about the Globetrotters. And I'd get them back on track to talk about a job, and I could see their eyes roll back as if this isn't going to happen. I never saw anybody that looked like myself doing the work. The doors were completely shut to African Americans. And I thought, well, somebody's got to be the first to do it.
You are about to witness the very exciting story of a city and its people. There is a renaissance in the city. There's a newness in Detroit. It will be an adventure that will open new sights.
You got my heart in a spin. You reel me out and then you reel me in.
Finally, Mannie got a position with General Motors in Detroit.
Being black in Detroit was as cool and as good as life could be. Most attractive women. The music, the entertainment was at the top. Because the automobile industry paid very well, I saw people that looked like myself living good in great homes and driving good cars, and their kids were spiffed up the right way. And I felt like I was a part of a team and part of something where people appreciated my skills. That all came to a halt when the riots broke out. Because it didn't matter your education, your intention, where you were living. The only thing that seemed to matter was your color. And suddenly, a person of color became the enemy to the status quo.
In 1967, Detroit erupted into 5 days of racial violence. Police and military troops tried to regain control of the city as 43 people died and 7,000 people were arrested.
I hadn't been trained for that, conditioned for it. With the black community, I probably looked a lot like the oppressors. I was working in corporate America. I had it made. I was trying to be as civil and as balanced as I could. With the white community, I probably looked a lot like the troublemakers. Then the business side of me kicked in and said, I don't see Detroit recovering for a long, long time. I thought the whole world was consumed by gas and smoke and fires and anger and bitterness. I went into Minneapolis and I saw an entirely different environment. People in that city embraced me, my family, and everything that I was about, and that's where I spent the next 25 years.
Jackson left General Motors for an executive position with Honeywell in Minneapolis.
My view of Minneapolis may be clouded because of this experience. I talk about 2 honeymoons, and the first honeymoon was my experience with Honeywell, but the second honeymoon was meeting my wife.
When I first met Manny, he was extremely well-dressed and very handsome, and it was the 70s, you know, we both had platform shoes and pretty wild clothes on, so he was pretty impressive. We started as friends. I will say that I did keep it secret from some people for a while until I knew it was going to be a permanent relationship, and yes, race relations were tough back then.
Probably one of my dad's, if not his biggest achievement, was kind of pairing up with my mom and finding her and finding that right partner to kind of help him achieve all that he has.
They're perfect partners because my mom was able to allow him to be out doing what he felt he needed to do when we were kids.
Manny and Kathy raised 2 daughters, Candace and Cassandra, and a son, Randall.
Probably my favorite childhood memories are just kind of sitting around the dinner table having fairly high-level political and intellectual conversations with my dad. I don't think he ever really thought you were too young to engage in that kind of debate.
So as a dad, he was always the cool dad that all your friends wanted to hang out with.
Manny worked long hours and endured constant travel to climb up the corporate ladder. Honeywell was known as the maker of a round thermostat, but their products division was greatly expanded.
And the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Manny guided the company in production of GPS systems. He started a business side of Honeywell that focused on new communications technology, landlines and wireless communications. After incredible success, Manny became Honeywell's worldwide corporate administration and marketing officer.
I like the art of the deal. I like the competition of the team across the table. I like acquiring companies, evaluating opportunities, and I learned so much at Honeywell about that kind of thing. Found out one time that the Harlem Globetrotters were for sale. They'd gone into bankruptcy. Then that really got my juices flying because I thought it's a shame to see such a great organization that had so much impact on the world be lost to the world. This is getting to the part of the story I like best too, because I bring my daughters into this. So as I began to think about the Globetrotters and the possibility of getting involved again, and essentially just taking the name and doing a movie and writing a book and licensed products. I took my daughters to a game.
And then sort of making that connection in my head, oh, my dad used to play with these guys.
It was amazing to think that my dad had been one of those players.
When they saw that team, their reaction was, "Dad, you used to do that?" They didn't realize I'd had so much fun. And I think the one daughter didn't appreciate that I'd had that kind of skill. And we sat in the Target Center in Minneapolis. The team came out. I thought we'd gotten there too early because there was no audience. We looked around and we estimated the place that seated maybe 17,000. There were probably 2,000 people there or less.
After Abe Saperstein's death in 1966, the Globetrotters went into decline. By the 1980s, they were seen as comedians and not competitors.
Certainly there were some great comedians and it was very funny and lots of laughs, but the style of play was slower. It wasn't like it didn't seem like they were athletes first. It seemed like they were maybe entertainers first and they'd maybe been athletes years ago.
We watched the game. At that time, the bankruptcy company knew that I was serious about doing it. So the girls and I went into the locker rooms. We went to dinner with Meadowlark Lemon, and that was fun because Meadowlark gave a nice talk to the girls. They met a man who was genuine, that they were impressed by. He understood children, and he made a good impression on them, and I fell in love again with it. I said, this thing has possibilities. It has legs. There's something here.
In 1993, Manny put together a deal to purchase the Harlem Globetrotters for $5 million. It made him the first African American to own outright a major sports entertainment organization.
There are a lot of people who like the Globetrotters because it's cute. and it's fancy and it's something to do. But there are a few people in the world that really understand what they meant to them as children, what it's meant to children around the world that had been there, and even fewer that had the kind of skills that I thought I had that I'd gotten from Honeywell. People ask me, was I influenced by Abe Saperstein? I really did walk around every day and think, what would Abe do? What would Abe think about this? How would he react to this? Because I have to say, in many, many ways, Abe was the ultimate mentor for me with the Harlem Globetrotters.
When Mannie took over the Globetrotters rebounded, and you could see it in attendance, going from one team to two teams, the arenas being full, sponsors being on board, revenues and profits.
It was sort of the best of both worlds. You were watching a great sporting event and, you know, amazing athletes, but you were also just kind of laughing the whole way through and amazed at how, like, quick-witted and hilarious these guys were.
We went to camp my rookie year. It was 8 positions, and it was basically 40 people there. And we didn't smile or spin a ball on our finger for 2 weeks. We ran on the track, we had tour days. You had to play great basketball because everybody that was out there was tops in their college or college All-Americans. So no matter how much you spin the ball on your finger, the ball has to go through the hole.
This is the Mecca, the last stop for basketball, where all the greatest performers and contributors in the game have been enshrined and honored here. To get in this Hall of Fame is more than about just basketball. It's about life choices, it's about excellence, it's about work and commitment, and this hall recognizes all of those things. And it was clear to me when they talked about recognizing the greatest contributors to the game worldwide, the omission was they had forgotten about the role of the Harlem Globetrotters. Globetrotters have been overlooked. The media had made them laughable for so many years that even the generation of kids playing ball had no appreciation of what the roots of the Globetrotters have been about. So when you think about recognizing the foundation of the roots of the game, you can't omit those great players prior to 1950 and prior to 1960 and the 20s and teens that played the game. And the Globetrotters were the best of those teams playing at that time. And their players were the best of the players playing at that time.
Please welcome Mannie Jackson.
Mannie is escorted by Eloise Saperstein, widow of the Globetrotters founder Abe Saperstein.
And so it is very historic tonight that I induct the Harlem Globetrotters as a team into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame.
And I like the idea of the flexibility you could have with the Globetrotters. And I thought the game of basketball is probably as good a way to communicate with the world as anything. Cultural stuff, behavioral stuff, tolerance. The model of excellence of a person is no different than the model of excellence of an enterprise.
People who are the most giving are those who started with nothing. It's not the people who were born into money necessarily who are that way.
He sees in people around the world who are less fortunate himself because he was there.
Every day I struggle, every day I strive, but things are looking better. I'm starting to feel alive.
Mannie used the platform of the Globetrotters to reach out to people in need all over the world. His family's goal is to give $100 million to charity. But Mannie also never forgot his hometown.
It's so interesting that people ask me all the time, they say, you've done this or that. Where are you from, boy? And you have to be really close to me to call me boy, by the way.
When he released his autobiography, Boxcar to Boardroom, he celebrated in Edwardsville.
So Mannie agreed to come back to his hometown today to sort of, promote this book, Boxcar to Boardrooms, all of which goes to charity. Begins here, really, and then also to announce this Mannie Jackson Center for the Humanities, which he is endorsing as this new Center for the Humanities at the Lincoln School, which was where the segregated school was that he went to before schools were integrated here.
And he believes that he should give something back. And if he can come back here and remind folks who are still here that you still should be in a given business. That's what Mannie Jackson stands for, and that's why, again, you see the outpour of people here recognizing him today.
As I look back on it now, every year I'm more proud of being an alumni of the University of Illinois. Probably more today than they did the first 10, 15 years I was out of school. Without the University of Illinois, I could never have navigated through the maze of the business world in the way that I was able to. And I think it's one of the finest institutions in the world. Do I still follow the Illini? Of course I do. It's my favorite team in the whole world. There's not a better team, a better coaching staff in the country. They're good kids. You have an opportunity to do whatever you want to do in life. The first game we played against Butler University over in Huff Gym, I scored 26 points. And the coach pulled me aside. He said, what the hell kind of game was that? I said, Coach, I scored 26 points. I'm a scorer. He said, who did you make better? And I walked away not being depressed, but confused and thinking about leaving the university and telling how grateful he was and how bad he was to pull me aside and do that. Not 1 year in my life have I gone without thinking about who in the room I'm sitting with, who am I playing with, who am I working with that I'm going to decide to make better. That one comment after a game rearranged my whole thinking, my concept of the game.
Mannie's drive to help students at Illinois extends beyond athletics. Through a donation of over $2 million, he established the Mannie L. Jackson Illinois Academic Enrichment and Leadership Program, or ILEAP.
The university is so large that without the help of certain people at the University of Illinois, I would not have made it through. This program had been started to give students today what I received from the University of Illinois back 30, 40 years ago. Two things I want to tell you. One is to be as honest as you can be. Go overboard at being honest. Always be honest. Keep that in the back of your mind all the time. And secondly, find somebody you can help, that you can make successful. And I would say that to any student or any aspiring young person coming through. Honesty and integrity will carry you a long, long ways. If you can find someone you're committed to helping to make successful, you'll do pretty good in life.